Yeah, good evening, Dr. Tharoor. Yeah, this is Vishnu from South Asian Herald. This delegation is engaged with several countries over the past week. What has been the nature of response from leaders in those nations, and what key messages or outcomes emerged from these interactions? And also, my second question is, were there any...
I've answered the first one,
okay.
that was my statement.
Yeah.
I mean, I've already answered it. No, but what's your second one?
The second is, were there any notable moments or engagements during this trip that stood out to you, either symbolically or substantively? Thank you.
Well, symbolically, I'd say that in every place we've gone to, including here, where we'll do it tomorrow, we have been paying tribute to the statue of Mahatma Gandhi. What's striking is that there is no capital, it seems, where there isn't a bust, at least one, if not two or three, in the capital city, hailing Mahatma Gandhi. And it's a reminder to the world that we are a land of peace and non-violence. We don't desire war, we don't seek it. But if it is thrust upon us, we will face it with courage. And Mahatma Gandhi taught us all not to live in fear, and we will not live in fear. So that symbolically would be the one part of your question. Other memorable moments, I would do, if I think it'll be invidious if I pick out any particular meetings, because all the meetings have really been very positive. I think of several of them when I do so, the extraordinary warmth of the reception we got from the entire Guyanese establishment. We met the president. We met the former president, who's now vice president. We met the prime minister. 11 members of his cabinet attended a dinner in our honor. We met the speaker of the National Assembly. It was extraordinary. The entire establishment of Guyana met us and gave us immense, immense support and respect. In Panama, it was striking. I think we often joked about this amongst ourselves, that one of the things the foreign minister wanted, after he had already publicly expressed support for our stand on this particular conflict, was to have an IIT. He said, when can you bring an IIT to Panama? That was what, so India is seen in this very, very broader, much broader light. In Colombia, we had terrific interactions right across the board. And again, what was striking with the government of Colombia was that when they spoke to us really as people they wanted to get to do more with. We had, for example, a think tank called the Colombia Council of International Affairs, which had a wide variety of people. They had academics, journalists, business people, entrepreneurs, bankers, the whole cross, and they're all gung-ho on India. I mean, for us it was, I suppose it wouldn't be right to call it a revelation because we sort of intuitively knew that India had a certain standing, but it was for us a sort of rediscovery of how much India and India's participation in their economies and their growth and their desire to work with us comes right across. Brazil, I mean, we had really back-to-back, the vice president of Brazil, the president was away, was so incredibly warm and friendly. And again, the same thing. He had been governor of Sao Paulo earlier. He recalled an Indian company opening a big aluminium plant in his state. He wanted us to come and do more. Again, he wants to come to India. He wants Indian businesses to come. I can't tell you everywhere we went, it's been like this. I think for us, what has been gratifying is the sense that not only did we get our message across, which was the mission, but we also discovered through our presence a reaffirmation of the value of India to the world and the respect in which India is held and the potential that India is seen to have for each of them. That would be the answer to you. Oh no, yeah. Well, in Colombia, as you know, they had issued a slightly disappointing statement at the time of Sindoor, in which they issued heartfelt condolences to the victims in Pakistan, quote unquote, and we were taken aback. And it so happened, unusually, that we began our visit to Colombia with a press conference. So at the press conference, I made it very clear already that we were very disappointed in this, and that went out. That night, the former Colombian ambassador to India had hosted a dinner for us, and there were some very senior officials there, one of whom was the director for Asia in the ministry, and I took her aside and told her this really has not been well received by us, and if something could be done. The next morning, they withdrew that statement. So, I mean, it was, for us, yes, you can see it as a fine gesture on their part, but it's also, again, a sign that they do some things sometimes without particularly knowing the full context and details. Everyone is in favor of peace, and if you're far, far away from a particular conflict, you will tend to just issue something fairly routine, and then when you have the context explained and the whole circumstances explained, you could see the better of it. And I think that was again one of the benefits of this delegation going out. Because if we hadn't, that might have been the last word on the record. in Colombia.
Dr. Tharoor, Rishi Iyengar from Foreign Policy magazine.
Hi.
So India, as was mentioned earlier, there's a Pakistani delegation also in town here. India's always treated the Kashmir issue and everything around it as bilateral.
That's right.
Whereas Pakistan has wanted to internationalize it. How do you square that idea with sending out delegations such as yours to engage and frankly internationalize the issue in a way?
No, it's not internationalizing. It's actually, each delegation is functioning in the spirit of a bilateral dialogue with the country concerned. And every time that anybody asks, and that includes on the Hill, will you talk to the Pakistanis, or would mediation help so you can promote dialogue? Our answer is very clear. We cannot talk to people who are pointing a gun at our heads. And frankly, until and unless there is a serious effort being made by Pakistan to dismantle the infrastructure of terrorism, to arrest some of the well-known figures who are on not only the United Nations Committee's list, but even in the US State Department's designated terrorist list. If they can't be arrested, if their bank accounts can't be frozen, if their training academies, training camps can't be shut down, if all of these things won't be done by Pakistan, why should we talk to them? It's very simple. I mean, if your neighbor attacks your children with their attacked dogs and then says, let's talk, will you talk to them until they put away the attacked dogs or euthanize them or lock them up in a kennel or leash them at least? They've done none of those things. So for us, the message was very clear. No, we're not going to talk. And the reason we're not going to talk is because of the way they're behaving, not because we don't like to talk. I often say we can talk to Pakistan in practically every language they speak there. We have no shortage of, we don't need a third party to come between us and help us talk to them. But we won't talk to them until they give us some indication that they're worth talking to. I pointed out the entire experience of 2003 to 8, which was the peak of dialogue between India and Pakistan. Relations were good, there was open dialogue going on, and there was back-channel talks between Prime Minister Manmohan Singh's envoy and General Musharraf's envoy. In 2008, President Zardari's government came to power on a pro-peace with India platform. His foreign minister, Shah Mahmood Qureshi, was in Delhi on the day of 26/11 to sign a liberalized visa regime with India. What happened? So while you're talking peace with these people, having dialogue, and everyone is giving you great assurances, some other elements in that society, in that state, deep or whatever you want to call it, came and started killing, in our case, 170 of our citizens, and not just our citizens, Americans and other nationalities were also killed in Mumbai in 26/11. So what is the point of talking to people if they can't even control what their own instruments, agencies and elements they have created in their society? If they can't control what they're doing to us, why bother to talk to them? If people we talk to are unable or unwilling to actually give us the peace we're talking about, then why talk?
So just as a quick follow-up, have you had to dispel any, on your visits, have you had to dispel any sort of re-hyphenation of India?
There hasn't been, because this answer is fully understood, first of all. Nobody has pushed back, not even senators and congressmen who asked this question, pushed back when we point to this out. They understood the logic that you don't talk to people who are doing this to you. But on the whole question of hyphenation, I've pointed out repeatedly there can be no equivalence between a country sending terrorists and a country having its civilians killed, holidaymakers, tourists, men shot down in front of their wives and children after being asked their religion. I mean, this kind of thing has been absolutely reprehensible, outrageous. Second, there can be no equivalence between people who are attacking and those who are defending themselves and their people and their territory and their sovereignty. There can be no equivalence. So there's no question. I said this is not about India and Pakistan. This is about India and terrorism inflicted on India. So India will act against terror, wherever it comes from. If it's coming from Pakistan, tough. They should deal with their own problems. And then they're going around, I understand, this delegation, saying, oh, but we are also victims of terrorism. We have lost more lives to terrorism than India has, and so on. The question we turn around and say, whose fault is that? As Hillary Clinton famously said 10 years ago, what did she say? You can't breed vipers in your backyard and expect it to bite only your neighbors. It's the old classic lesson of Dr. Frankenstein. You build a monster, it leaves your control. That's why they're now getting terrorist attacks by the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. But who created the Taliban from which the Tehreek-e-Taliban broke off? We all know the answer to that. So let Pakistan look inside itself. Let it do some serious interior reflection before it goes around pleading innocence and deniability.
There is a copycat delegation that we've been talking about, which is visiting the US from the Pakistani side. They are also getting the same kind of meetings in Washington, DC, at least that we know of. Are the Western powers, and
They got the Pakistan caucus, which is how many members? We got the India caucus, which is how many members? I ask you, Rohit, you're covering all this from here. You know
so my question to you is, given
exactly
that
identical meetings.
given that what you've said and what we've seen in the past 2 weeks or so, when it comes to the Western powers, are they still drawing a false equivalence with India and putting and hyphenating India and Pakistan?
I don't think so, and that's exactly the answer the three of us have been giving, is that I don't think that in our conversations we got the sense of that. There was certainly a fear expressed by our friend from Foreign Policy magazine, Rishi Iyengar, which is a common fear, right? That you guys are going outside and talking about this particular incident. Doesn't that again rehyphenate? And my answer to you is no, because that's not the way we are talking. We are not there, as I say, with a message about India versus Pakistan, this quarrel for so long and so on. That's not the issue. It's about India as a democracy facing terror and as a country that basically has been focused on its own economic development, on its growth story. Even Kashmir was a story of prosperity, of booming economy. I told the Americans we had more tourists in Kashmir last year than Aspen, Colorado receives. We had a 100% increase in the first 3 months of this year from the first 3 months of last year. This was what Kashmir was all about. There's prosperity around. Kashmiris are getting money in their pockets from Indian tourists coming. This is the kind of thing these terrorists are trying to target. So it is undermining the India growth story, undermining the Kashmiri economy, trying to promote alienation. Why do they go around asking people their religion and shooting them? And then when one horrified wife screamed, "Kill me too," they said, no, you go back and tell them. They wanted a backlash from India. They wanted a communal backlash from India. And this is why I must say, I'm so proud of my countrymen and women that apart from a few heightened passions on the first 24 hours, thereafter the way in which the country rallied together and stayed united on this. And when Operation Sindoor was conducted, you remember the briefings, that of the three briefers, 2 were women and 1 was a Muslim woman officer. Of all these delegations, none of our delegations is without at least 1 Muslim member, sometimes more. Sarfraz Ahmed is with me here, and he can speak very, very openly about the fact that this is about terrorism. It's not about religion. It's not about communal issues. It's not about bilateral India-Pakistan historical antecedents, whatever. It's pure and simple about one set of people using terrorism as an instrument of state policy. And the world doesn't want it. The world doesn't accept it. The world doesn't think this is a technique anybody should be allowed to use. Which is why the Pakistanis have to go around now and say, oh, we are also victims of terrorism. They created, incubated, nurtured, financed, guided, and gave facilities and safe haven and land to these terrorists.
The attack in Pahalgam was one in a long line of attacks. And one thing that's happened every time there's been a terrorist attack, like Mumbai, the one in Pathankot, the one in Pulwama, the Indian government has come out with evidence, maybe not immediately, but after a while, that show 2 things. One, that the perpetrators were Pakistani or they were, funded by the Pakistanis. And 2, that these elements, the attackers themselves, were under the control of the Pakistani intelligence establishment. As you've gone around talking to the Hill and agencies and government representatives, have you been asked for that kind of evidence as it relates to the Pahalgam attack? Because we haven't seen it yet. I'm not doubting it. I'm just asking why this time it seems different. It
hasn't come up in most of our substantive meetings, but media likes to ask this question, Mr. Bhattacharya. So I can tell you that we have been asked as recently as the National Press Club this afternoon. So it's a question that media likes to ask, and I can give you an answer, frankly, which had we been asked in our meetings, we would have given anyway. Number 1, we have got a pattern since 1989 of repeated attacks, every one of which was denied by Pakistan and every one of which has been traced to Pakistan. The most famous or notorious cases have been Mumbai, 9/11. Pakistan's denials are on record, and then one of the terrorists was captured alive, and of course his address in Pakistan, where he lived, who trained him, where he was trained, everything was compiled. You remember that Western intelligence agencies, apart from our own, had recorded the chilling voice of that handler calling and giving minute by minute killing instructions from Pakistan to the killers. It is no longer possible for Pakistan to keep on denying. And yet, to this day, the dossier is compiled with all that evidence. Not one person has been prosecuted, not one person has been punished in Pakistan. But that's the pattern, and I agree that you can have somebody who does the same crime 99 times, and maybe the 100th time he didn't do it, right? Okay, so let me say the next one. When this thing happened, within less than an hour after the killings in Pahalgam, in this meadow, the LET front organization, proxy organization called the Resistance Front, claimed credit. Now, most of us didn't even know about this within that kind of time frame. There were no journalists around when these poor tourists were being killed, right? Yet within 45 minutes they had claimed it. So they knew, because they had sent these people out. They repeated that claim 24 hours later on their website. It's only then, with the world united in condemnation of this heinous crime, that the handlers must have realized, oh my God, this is going to get us all into trouble, and they said to these guys, delete your claim. But the fact is the claim was made, and it was made far too early for it to have been, shall we say, some sort of anything other than a genuine admission of responsibility and from their point of view, a celebration of their responsibility for having killed innocent tourists. Third, India doesn't go to war on supposition and hypotheses. I can only say this much, that our intelligence agencies have identified, at least when I left, at least 4 of the 5 perpetrators. And they know their identities. They even have pictures, because some of these people have been involved in other incidents. So, I mean, intelligence work is beyond my ken and that of my delegation. But they have confirmed to us that 2 are Pakistanis and 2 others are locals who are known to have gone, or as the word is used, to have exfiltrated from Indian Kashmir to Pakistan 10 years ago. And they seem to have come back for this purpose and gone back again. So we have all this information, and we don't, frankly, in any case, go around taking such a major step as Operation Sindoor without very serious grounds for doing so. And I think you all have enough respect, I'm sure the international intelligence community has enough respect for India to understand what's going on. I'm frankly a bit puzzled that the media in the West has been reporting Pakistan's denial as if it has any. Have you already forgotten that they denied they knew where Osama bin Laden was? And where was he found? In a safe house near an army camp in a cantonment city in the heart of Pakistan. This has been Pakistan's record. Why on earth would you blithely report their denials as if they were real?
There's a lot of talk about Pakistan and the UN, and Pakistan is a member of the UN Security Council. This year, it will chair the Taliban Sanctions Committee and will be the vice chair of the Counter-Terrorism Committee of the UN Security Council. How do you see that? I mean, what do they bring to the table? And also, what does it say about the UN? Thank you.
It says about the UN that countries take turns. To be honest, even being president of the Security Council, when I was at the UN, there was a story going around about how a particular president, an ambassador of a very small country, couldn't sleep at night. His wife said, "What's the matter?" And he said, "Darling, don't you realize from tomorrow I'm president of the world?" And the fact is that his country got it by alphabetical order. It's as simple as that. There's nothing more than that. And many of these positions are rotational. I want to tell you that there is a number of UN institutions and committees, and so one shouldn't exaggerate. All the members of the council automatically belong to all these committees, and chairmanship rotates. So you've got the Counterterrorism Committee established under Resolution 1373, it's known as the 1373 Committee, which requires states to criminalize acts associated with terrorism. I think that's the one that that you may have been asking about, there is also a whole series of other committees established, 1267, which you mentioned, 1989, 2253. All of these were specific to certain groups. So one was about ISIL or Daesh, one was about Al-Qaeda, one was about Taliban, and so on. I think it's the Taliban committee these guys have got. I don't know what the feelings of the Afghans are about this, but there you are. Then there is a committee pursuant to Resolution 1540, and that one deals with preventing non-state actors from acquiring, developing, or using nuclear weapons. It would have been really funny if Pakistan had been given that particular chairmanship, but that at least mercifully has not happened. I mention all this not because there's any particular significance to them. These are committees that meet, they review submissions. If any country were to give a submission about the Taliban, it'll be discussed under the chairmanship of Pakistan. But to the best of my knowledge, and I've been gone from the UN for some time, they all work on consensus. So there is no way that the chairman, whoever it may be, can get a particular point of view through or get something accepted or rejected merely by virtue of being chairman. The others will weigh in very heavily, and we are not exactly friendless in the Security Council and therefore in its committees.
Thank you so much. Delegation, welcome to DC, and hope you're having a good time. My question is to you, Dr. Tharoor. You spoke about the complete understanding that your delegation received in your travels around these 5 countries. The phrase you used was batting average of 100. So what was their response to what you said about the Pakistanis and their roles, continued role in cross-border terrorism? Was there disbelief, or they said, oh, of course we know this, you preaching to the converted? What were their responses? And I'm not just talking about the US, because
everywhere we went, the points we made were all, shall we say, clinching. Everything that I've said to you today is incontrovertible. There's nothing here that's either controversial or challenged or everything. I mean, where was Osama bin Laden found? Who did Mumbai? Who has conducted these other attacks? Which agencies, if you can call them that, which terrorist organizations and individuals are listed in the UN committee? All of this is incontrovertible stuff. And so they know. I mean, I think it didn't surprise us that nobody came back and said, oh, but we love Pakistan, they're a great country. Everyone either took it exactly the way we had told them, or they specifically went out of their way to stress that they had no sympathy for what Pakistan had done. But at the same time, you know, as I say repeatedly, this is not about Pakistan. And frankly, we don't care one way or the other what Pakistan is doing to itself. We do care about what Pakistan is doing to us and to our citizens. That's all the only issue is. So stop terrorism, and then you can be who you want to be, do what you like, do what you want, shop at Temu as much as you like. But the fact is, don't bother us, leave us alone. I mean, that sort of thing is the message. So, you know, we are not going around asking for sanctions on Pakistan or whatever. We are basically saying, if you want to talk to the Pakistanis, tell them, why do you give safe haven to these terrorists? Why do you allow them to function? Why are you permitting this kind of activity against your neighbor? Those questions you ask. Don't ask us otherwise. You know, this didn't happen from the heavens. It happened from one particular place, and that was Pakistan.
Sir, I'm Anil Dagrkar from Pudhari newspaper and Pudhari TV news channel. Sir, how do you see these briefings impacting India-US relations, especially in terms of counter-terrorism efforts?
You mean India's counter-terrorism efforts? Or
No, the briefings, how does it impact India-US relations?
India-US relations?
Yes.
Well, I think that you all sitting here will be in a better position to judge. It's part, for us, it's one more element in a very large and wide-ranging relationship. It shows that we are giving the US the respect they deserve and giving them our side of the story, in answering any questions they may have, offering any clarifications they may have. And at the same time, from our point of view, this is a relationship that matters way beyond this particular issue. And I think, as all my colleagues have also been pointing out, that's the spirit in which these folks have also approached it. They are showing us solidarity, they're showing us understanding, and equally they want to talk about much bigger things and many, many other matters. So for us, this still is not something we want people to forget. I know that in many countries far away from India, It was a 3-day story and then it's been forgotten. It's no longer top of the mind on people. And we just want to tell them, we understand you've got many other issues to deal with, but don't forget what happened to us. Don't forget why we did what we did, and bear this in mind if they do it again. I mean, that is also a message, because we know the terrorist facilities we sort of destroyed can be rebuilt in 6 to 9 months. And if they start this game again because Pakistan enables them to do so or wants them to do so, then they should be prepared. I mean, our Prime Minister said very clearly, Operation Sindoor is not over. Doesn't mean that we are attacking anybody. It just means that if terrorism resumes, so will our reaction resume. If they hit, we will hit back, and we'll hit back very hard. If they leave us alone, we'll be happy to leave them alone. We have no desire to do anything else. This is broadly the thrust of what we are assuring the world.
I'm sure we have time for a few more questions, but again, it has to go in the order that these were asked.
Hi, Dr. Tharoor. Moving away from Pakistan, did the issue of trade surface in your discussions with lawmakers on the Hill? And specifically, if you can put on your hat or coat as an MP from Kerala and reflect on why is it that our revenues from spice trade is so low? I mean, every time I go to Costco and see, Malabar pepper or Tellicherry pepper selling for $2.99, it burns me up. I mean, this is black gold,
Used to be.
Yeah. And and trade is an issue which affects every state. So if other MPs want to, cut in, I'd love to hear, because if the Americans are going to shove their soy and wheat and dairy products down our throat, I'd love to hear what reactions from other MPs.
So trade didn't come up in the context of the Pahalgam attacks, except again once from the media at the National Press Club this afternoon. The question was asked, to which I can tell you truthfully that I've been briefed on the various conversations that were had, and trade never came up in these conversations. So all I can say is that there is a parallel track, an unrelated track, not connected to Pahalgam, at which detailed discussions are taking place on trade, and all accounts suggest that there's good progress being made, but of course there are no announcements yet. In the context of Pahalgam, there was nothing. In the context of the trade talks, talks are making progress. On spices and other items being cheap, I mean, the sad truth is it's a market-driven logic. At one point, as you said, pepper was black gold because the only place you could get it was India. Today it's being grown anywhere else. So if you start raising your prices, others will undercut you. The same has happened to tea. I've met tea planters who say that our tea is now not economical to sell because we're being so massively undercut by Kenyan tea and Ethiopian tea. And of course, Sri Lanka was always undercutting us quite a bit. So these are now challenges. I mean, the law of demand and supply is that when items are scarce, their value will go up. When items are plentiful, their value will go down, their price will go down. It doesn't mean we'll stop exporting, it's just that our profits will unfortunately be very marginal. And there are people unfortunately getting out. Classic example in Kerala is not spices, but rubber. We had some of the best quality natural rubber, but literally we cannot sell it in the market. It costs more to produce rubber in Kerala than it does in Malaysia, than it does in many other countries. And of course now synthetic rubber has come in. So we have acres and acres, thousands of acres of rubber plantations that are essentially idle because it's not economic to grow rubber. I have participated in a protest by pineapple farmers. Pineapples in Kerala, each unit just to cultivate a pineapple costs you more than double what you can fetch in the market for it. Why would you do it? Why would anyone grow a pineapple anymore? So these are real problems that are affecting many, many sectors, and agriculture is one of those things.
Since nobody's addressed the elephant in the room.
Oh my God. I know we've slain a lot of elephants this afternoon.
The big elephant being the discrepancy between your message and the message that's coming from the Trump administration at the level no less than the president's and the Secretary of State, who said the two countries, meaning India and Pakistan, will meet in a third place to talk about all their issues. So that's one question. Are you meeting anybody in the executive branch? Number two, what's your read on why the American establishment can't get this message about the vipers and that China's front is Pakistan, etc. Where is that gap? and how do you plan to fill it?
Yes, most definitely we're meeting people in the executive branch. Every country we go to, it's been the executive branch, the legislative branch, think tanks and policy wonks, and media. And of course, there were some public interactions, such as with diaspora groups in some countries where there's a significant diaspora, bigger or smaller interactions. And we're going to do one tonight, as you're probably aware, since you're all part of the diaspora. So that's the range of things. We've got 2 more days in Washington. Some appointments are still being finalized, and when they are, I know the embassy will certainly share with you the information. But, you know, the quality of the appointments we've had on the Hill today augur very well for the way in which our mission has been received, and certainly we couldn't have literally had a better set of interlocutors on the Hill than the ones we had today. Imagine not just the India caucus, but also the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee, the chair of the South Asia subcommittee, the chair of the East Asia subcommittee, co-chairs in all cases, then the Senate chair, ranking member, and others of the Foreign Affairs Committee, and the Senate Intelligence Committee, Senator Warner. So you really had the kind of conversations that we would have wished we could have had when we left Delhi. Absolutely no sort of, oh my gosh, what a pity we didn't see him, whatever. Nobody like that. So the Hill, we've done very well, and we still haven't finished, so there may be other opportunities as well. But in any case, our focus will shift a little bit now to the executive branch, and there will be meetings in the next couple of days, plus possibly additional meetings on the Hill as well. And then the embassy will keep you posted. So it's not an elephant at all.
What's your read on the American messaging, which was nation, which was, you know, the executive branch's messaging?
Seema, I think you've lived here long enough to realize that India is not necessarily top of the mind amongst the various controversial issues in this country. India is not a controversial issue. It's by and large a consensual issue. It's a bipartisan issue. People don't spend a lot of time worrying about it, whereas they do spend time worrying about Russia, Ukraine, or Israel, Gaza, or the big bad, beg your pardon, the big beautiful bill, and all of these other things is what's on their minds, right? So there's got plenty going on. We wanted to just tell them, you know, there are these considerations. We hope you understand our point of view. Yes, we've understood now. We've heard you. No problem. That is mission accomplished. That's all we wanted. If you say that you're drawing any conclusions that this is not important enough, not true. If there was a raging war going on right now, clearly the same people would have had much more time for this and much less time for anything else. Right now there isn't a raging war. So it's more for their education, their understanding, their contextual appreciation of our stand. That's all it is. And I think the same will apply whoever we see in the executive branch, because as I said, they've got so many more urgent things to attend to right now. It's more a question of context. Tell them what we want them to hear from us, just to make sure that things are clear. If they have any questions, we'll be very happy to answer them and move on. That's really what we're doing.